Hi, Year 5. So we're writing our chapter 2. You've already got your plan. You've already got words for sounds of Victorian London, which you'll still be able to hear, or you would still be able to hear from inside the workhouse yard. Just outside the gate, you'd be able to hear carriages going past and the sound of horses' hooves on the cobbled stones. So lots and lots. You still be able to hear the market stall holders shouting out. So you still be able to hear lots of those sounds. You can include those in your writing. But you've made a plan yesterday, probably, for 4 separate paragraphs of writing. Now, it could be that they're not 4 separate paragraphs. You might have more than 4 paragraphs, but you should have at least 4 paragraphs. The first one with the arriving at the workhouse, and you had to think of 5 nouns and then describing them. So I've already started with that one here. So the gate slammed shut with a shudder, and I had to think about that word shudder because I wanted to imagine the gate doing that, and that's a vibration, but vibration didn't seem like the right sort of word for this Victorian story, and shudder is something that's kind of scary sounding. The sound echoed around the yard. So remember that word? I used that when we described the workhouse a couple of weeks ago. So you might be able to use your workhouse descriptions in this as well. I'm quite happy for you to reuse those, not exactly the same, but to make it part of your story. I've used a relative clause. So it says here, which seemed, we've been practicing those. So the gate slammed shut with a shudder, and the sound echoed around the yard, comma, which seemed to Jack, so our brackets, our parentheses, we say to Jack, to be longer than 100 houses. Striding towards him, with giant keys jangling against his leg, a man, again a relative clause, who was larger than any man he'd ever seen. Oh, I need a comma at the end of my relative clause, don't I? So we've got our relative clause here, who was larger than any man he'd ever seen. So that's our extra information. Otherwise, it would be striding towards him with giant keys jangling against his leg. A man loomed over him. So that would still work, but we've got a relative clause, who was larger than any man he'd ever seen, loomed over him. He could hear a rhythmic clang close by of what sounded like metal and stone. So in that paragraph, I have also tried to include, as well as relative clauses and parentheses, I've also got some adverb phrases in there describing where, when, how things are happening. I have just mentioned the giant keys. I've mentioned the gate slamming, and I've mentioned the sound of the metal and stone hitting, which we're going to come to in a minute. I've only mentioned 3 nouns, so I could now carry on and talk about my other 2 to describe the yards even more in the workhouse, but I'm not going to. I'm going to move on to paragraph 2 for you. But if I was writing it, I would make sure that I had all my 5 nouns in there to make it really a fantastic story for my reader. So paragraph 2 was about seeing the children working. As he's walking around the workhouse, he sees the children working or at school. So I'm going to start with an adverb phrase. So led by the grumpy warden. I wonder if I should mention that that's a warden here. I might have to say add that here. So it's good to have the continuity, the cohesion across both paragraphs. So striding towards him with giant keys jangling against his leg, a man. So maybe here I'd write something like a warden, but I'm not sure that fits perfectly. So I'm going to come back to that, I think. There we go. Led by the grumpy warden, moving briskly. So more adverbs across the yard. Briskly gives it the feeling of it moving very quickly and hurriedly. So I'm going to use the word hurriedly as well. Jack. I'm going to use my parenthesis. Hurriedly looked around and spotted what was causing the. Now, how do I spell rhythmic? I was remember how you told his mum. That's rhythm. That's how I always remember it. Spotted what was causing the rhythmic sound. The children who were dressed in rags, so relative clause there, who were dressed in rags, each held enormous mallets, or was it hammers? I'm not sure. Mallets, hammers. I'm going to, again, highlight that and come back to it so I can edit it and decide what word I want there. To crush rocks. Okay, so in this, I would go on then to talk about the way the children looked, that they were skinny. I think I wrote that in the plan, that they're very skinny. So I'm looking back at my plan and thinking, right, what else did I say I was going to describe? How else did I say I was going to describe the children? Then I would move on to my third paragraph, looking back at the plan again. What was the third paragraph including? It was about the children eating, how they were sitting, where they were sitting, what they were eating, what the smell was like, all of those things. And then the final paragraph was about him finding his bed. Or your character might be a girl, and all written in third person. So any questions you have, of course, always send me an email and I'd be happy to answer them. But do use all the information that you've got, all the writing you've done so far, all the practice we've been doing to help you, as well as this. You can always magpie little parts of this as well. Okay.